call the meeting back to order at this time, and the next item on the agenda is the Toro Blanco Group, Downtown Connectivity Solutions, and we do have someone from this group, Terry Cope, who's going to come up and present some ideas. So Terry, if you will come up, introduce yourself again, and tell us what you have to offer.
Is he part of the Toro Blanco group?
Yes, that's right. So I'm Terry Cope. I'm the managing partner. It's my company. It's a small
Much closer to the microphone.
How about this?
And you can pull it up.
You can pull it
since
to
you're
you.
taller.
All right. And I apologize for turning my back on you guys. It seems kind of weird, but so yes, we're the Toro Blanco Group. We design infrastructure for wireless communications. So we work with a lot of councils and a lot of different cities, a lot of different areas on how to bring this infrastructure into cities without, let's say, overrunning the look and feel of the city. We just finished the last couple of years working with the French Quarter in New Orleans, a very historic area, and we designed infrastructure that is cast iron, looks like it's been in the French Quarter for, as long as the French Quarter's been there, but it's not obvious that it's wireless infrastructure. And so that's something that we work with historians, preservationists, all the societies, business districts, everyone, so that when technology comes, it doesn't alter the feel of the town. So we love, especially small towns. We're working with Park City in Utah, where we're putting networks in downtown without really, you can almost not even see it. We just minimize the amount of equipment that goes on the outside so that a place like Park City doesn't change when technology changes. Telluride in Colorado is another one where we're doing the same thing. We're putting poles to support 5G in Telluride, but we're putting a very minimalist pole that looks like it belongs there. So our whole point is to design it and work with councils, cities, municipalities, so that when we build it out, you're happy with it, and it looks like it belongs, right? So Blue Ridge is in a good place. You're not overrun with carriers. You don't have great coverage. It's pretty poor. In order to improve it, it's going to take a lot of infrastructure. Now's a great time to think about it, talk about it, figure out how best to do it so it doesn't change. I live in Atlanta, and I can show you pictures where, in one screenshot, you can see 4 or 5 different poles that support 5G technology. They're all ugly, and worse than that, they're all ugly in their own unique way. They're not even the same. So there are ways to do it that are, let's say, uncontrolled and sort of ad hoc, and then the result is you get a lot of wires and antennas and things all over the place. You get multiple poles for different carriers, so each carrier wants their own pole. We try to work to make sure everybody maximizes the infrastructure. So even though we design infrastructure and poles and put them out there, we think there should be as few of them as possible, and that they should have the most use, right? So in New Orleans, where we're deploying, we also work with Homeland Security on hosting what they already have. We work with the police on what they want to do. So we just work with the business associations because they want something else. So we just integrate it into the infrastructure, use as few poles as possible, and get the most use out of those poles. So that's a quick, short, high level. Any questions there? I hope I got my point across.
Oh my God, so many, so many questions.
Let's
You
go
say
there.
infrastructure, what are you talking about? We're allowed to ask questions, correct?
Yes, go ahead.
You're talking infrastructure, what are you talking about? What are you talking about as far as, give me something in my head.
Okay, so if we wanted to totally improve and bring advanced telecommunications, 5G,
To what area?
to the CBD in particular, and
Okay.
I'll explain why I talk about CBD differently than other
Mhm.
areas afterwards. But we looked at Blue Ridge, and we're talking about doing probably 5 to 8 nodes, which by a node is normally a pole that can look like a street light with some antennas on top, or it can be a taller, slender pole. But you wouldn't call them towers with this type of infrastructure. It's much lower and closer, so it's more like street lights. Like when we built out in the 90s, those were towers way out in the country. They could be like 10 miles apart. When we got further along with when you could start texting and things improved, they call that GSM. That was the 3rd generation. Then things got to rooftops. They got closer. They got on tops of buildings, and they got shorter, which got more of them. And now with 5G, now we're in the 5th generation. It's more like streetlights in the downtown area, where you can put things on poles so that the signal strength is much lower. It doesn't carry as far, but it allows you to transmit more data. So when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about poles that are more like streetlights than like a tower or a pole, predominantly. And when I talk about it in Blue Ridge, we're looking at the CBD primarily. And
You say primarily.
this is why, usually with most cities and councils, you have a sort of tiered approach on what they allow when they build things out. So we like to focus and specialize on historic areas, downtown areas, CBDs, where you don't want a lot of poles, you don't want stuff, you don't want a lot of extra things in the sidewalk, so you have ADA concerns. You really want to try to control it, not just where it is, but what it looks like, right? So it doesn't look like antennas and wires and stuff everywhere, and you want a consistent look kind of throughout. So if you can have one that looks like a street lamp, and you need 15 of them, it's not as bad if they all look alike and they all look like a street lamp. But if they all obviously are a big pole with big industrial looking stuff on it, you don't want it all over the place. You know, so we work to make it more like the former, make it consistent, make it look like it belongs in, and try to minimize how many of them are needed. So usually cities will have a tier. So in their historic areas, they'll have one set of rules. It has to be historic, it has to be cast iron, it has to be wrought iron, it has to be like this example, you know, you define what it looks like. New Orleans thinks they're really fancy because they're French, they call it the tout ensemble. It has to look like it just belongs, right? So you define different areas. So your most important historic areas, you take the heaviest hand, kind of controlling what it looks like so that you don't get too much of it and it doesn't get too varied. When you get a little further out, you have, for example, wooden poles in a lot of places. Then it just makes a lot more sense to let carriers attach something to a wooden pole, try to minimize it. You already have a lot of transformers in other areas, maybe you have other infrastructure. Adding something to a wooden pole probably makes more sense. In a more mixed area where, you know, it might still be like a CBD, but you have overhead utilities, maybe they put up only steel poles because you don't want more wood poles. But
I understand.
you control it in sort of a tiered way. So focusing on the CBD, I think is the important part to protect Blue Ridge, so it doesn't, you know, change the character and feel of the town.
What I was, what I wanted to know is you said nodes.
Mhm.
These are wireless nodes.
Correct.
So you put one node in that feeds off all 5 of these, or you trench into these poles? You have to wire to the pole.
You do have to wire fiber optics, or a lot of times now we use a hybrid, so we can run the power and the fiber in one line. I don't know if you're familiar, but like 16 gauge wire is bigger than this,
Right.
but you know, it's like a large extension cord, and you can get all the power and the fiber in one of those, and we can run it in. You know, a lot of times we can use existing ducts, so we don't even have to dig or trench to connect them. Particularly here in Blue Ridge, we've talked a little bit about what's possible and what we can do here, and you know, we have some ideas. We've started kind of formulating a proposal, but really it's kind of presumptuous. That's why I want to talk to everyone here and think about how we approach it before we do
Well, I've
something like that.
gotten several emails that people are concerned about the safety of what you're offering.
Mhm.
So tell me about the radiation. Tell me about the safety. If I sleep under that pole for a week, am I gonna be affected by it? If you put that on a street pole and I'm in an apartment 20 feet from it and it's coming through my window, is that gonna have any effect on me?
And do you
And
have
it-
research to support that, your
Yes.
claim? Okay,
So
that's
no
really
and yes.
important.
Wasn't a yes to your question because
Yeah.
the distance requirements are usually within the 4 to 5 foot range from the antenna.
Okay,
And so unless you're putting it right outside someone's balcony, you know, you don't have distance concerns because they're usually at least, 18 feet.
some of
in
the poles
air.
downtown are pretty close to people's balconies and windows
Yep.
and where they
And so we-
habitate.
And even though you can be 3 or 4 feet from that, it's still just not cool to put that 3 or 4 feet from where someone's looking, just from an aesthetic policy. Nobody wants to look out
Right.
and see something.
What
even
about communication?
semi-industrial.
What about my TV signal, my cable signal? What about those things?
So the FCC is the one who really governs all of this, and I have a lot of reference info I can send over, both from the U.S., from the U.K., from Europe, Australia, where everyone's really, really, there's been concerns about. I've been in this business since, well, technically I was in the Air Force doing this business, but it was long. I've been in this
A
a
little
long
different,
time.
I understand that.
But it's evolved over time.
So I
But
think
it's
what
the
the
same.
council would like to see, and don't mean to interrupt you, but we're gonna move this along if you don't mind. I think what the council would like to see is the studies. I think we'd like to know before we vote anything for anything that could harm our citizens. We're gonna wanna know, we're gonna wanna see real research,
So
real studies.
I'd like to make 2 points about
You
that.
go right ahead.
One is, I have some that I sent over that we can share that kind of addresses all of those. In short, it's on a level with FM radio and your home microwave. That's the type of signal we're dealing with and sort of health impact. So there's lots of good studies and information and government-supported research that basically says it's harmless, you know, it's ubiquitous, it's already out there, it doesn't impact the health. There's plenty of that on it. I'm not one to speak on it. There's plenty of government. I can forward lots of good
Well, you
information on
mentioned
it.
FM radio. My FM radio is in a tower that's 350 or 400 feet high out here. It's not sitting across from my bedroom window, and I don't have people walking under it daily.
Yeah.
And people that work downtown, you know, are you gonna set that FM radio right there? I mean, you're gonna set that antenna right there? Because you're gonna harm people if you're not careful with that,
Yeah.
with the radiation from it.
And there's a big difference with how, there are some radios that can carry across the Atlantic, across the
Correct.
ocean. And it's a very long, powerful wave, and it's very strong, because it has to go a very long distance. The signal that comes from your microwave radio in your oven is a super fast signal.
Understand,
But
but
it
my
doesn't go very
microwave is
far.
also steel, and it has stuff built in to keep any microwave radiation from coming off. Not only does it that, but before it will shut down, it relieves it with a fan.
Yeah.
So,
And just like they studied microwaves and they studied FM, they've studied 5G long before it was 5G.
So
So-
can you tell me, what are the federal guidelines with 5G as far as communities and accessibility? And do we have the right to say no? Or is it coming anyway? That's what I keep hearing, so.
That's exactly where I was going with your
Okay.
point. Like, when I
Okay.
said I'm not really the one to answer it, is because as far as the government is concerned and every major health organization is concerned, that part's settled. The FCC has made it extremely advantageous for carriers to deploy this. When carriers are ready to come and they want to cover downtown, you can't stop them. It's really, it's.
why is that?
Because that's the law. That's federal guidance. You cannot.
So they can come in and put this in whether the city council, the city, or the citizens want, is what
That's
you're saying.
correct.
That's
You have-
what I've heard as well.
That's absolutely correct. But you have 2 levers of control to manage it and control it. You can control the siting, which is where it's located to a degree, and you can control the aesthetics, what it looks like to a degree. Those are really the 2 levers that councils and cities have that they can control this rollout. Where we come in is we are absolutely bang those levers. Let's control what it looks like. Let's control the downtown. Let's not let them build however they want in any crazy way. It's coming whether you want it or not.
And I don't like that.
That's not our fight. That's not my fight.
I'm getting kind of tired of people telling me what we have to do. I really am.
I
That's
can't-
the
I'm not in
government,
that-
that's what we do.
I'm not in that fight. It's not my
We
fight.
do, but we're trying to help people. We're not forcing things down their throat that could harm them.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
I kept my mouth shut here. Are you proposing an opportunity for somebody that we're gonna have to accept one way or the other to put historical gas lights all the way down our CBD, and then on a couple of the gas light poles have, I mean, if we're gonna sit here and pick aesthetics, I mean, let's get ourselves to look like downtown New Orleans.
Well, I understand, Doc, but
Yeah,
if they're
so-
gonna force it on us, what are we doing here tonight? Why is this on the
Yeah, I
agenda?
just wanna know whether or not this is an opportunity
Well-
for somebody else to put gas lights down Main Street. and,
So I'm not
put
being
these
harsh
things
with
on.
you. I'm just saying that we're put here to do what's best for the people inside this city. That's what our job is. That's what people elected us to do. And to be told that I have to do it, that don't sit well with
And
me.
of course,
Well-
he's not telling us we have to do it with him. What he's saying is the
I
federal, and that's
understand.
the federal government. That's
I'm
not.
I'm saying if you had to swallow
yeah.
this bitter pill, I'm a chocolate coating. Because I want to make it as advantageous for the city.
If it
when
has to
comes.
happen, make it
know,
to our
Let's go back
advantage.
to my gas lights. Can you put in, can you put in 10 gas
Yeah.
lights down Main
Actually,
Street and
that
put
is-
the note on 3 of them?
That is in my proposal. Like, we started looking at how it could happen and where it could be and what we could do to sort of minimize the impact of it. And one of them is to use, like you have along the depot line, those black ones with the lanterns on top. And we do something very similar to that and with the lantern. And wherever else we need things that are, you know, not on that line, you're gonna need them in other areas. We can do a similar style pole so that you have something that, like on the parking lot, on that empty corner, that would be a good location. So if we were gonna put a pole there, you've got wooden poles with transformers on the other side, you got wooden poles on this side, you got a bunch of wires. Honestly, it's a bunch of wires up there. But if we wanted to put something there, we couldn't use any of that because it's so full of wires and other transformers. Well, we could put a new, nice pole, cast iron.
Can you put a
lantern.
gas light on it, pay for it?
Yeah, that's how we do it because,
He's
like,
determined.
well, like in Telluride, you know, they have a big night sky. It's one of their big things. They really want to light the sidewalk. They don't want to light the sky. So we work with light sky light vendors so that we can direct lights onto the crosswalks. So we try to locate those nodes near crosswalks where they need a new light and a new, you know, lighting for, you know, so that's the point of coming and talking now
Do
before we
you-
even propose.
I'm sorry. Do you have photos, different things of other cities where you've done this, so we can see?
I sent some over.
You have them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't bring a lot of photos. There's two key ones. This is the one in New Orleans. This is just, the,
Pretty.
you know, not in the wild, but
And how tall is that, sir?
it's about 18 feet tall. And one of the things we did in New Orleans that was
Where is the
important-
node? Is it the top part there?
most of it is up here,
And how far is that off the ground?
and this is 4 feet and 5 feet. This is the 18-foot mark, and the lantern's around the traditional 12 height. So we kept the lantern at the same height as the existing lanterns in the French Quarter, because when you look, you know, especially at night, when you look down the street, you see if a lantern is in a different place. But, you know, you don't really notice what's on top of it. You kind of go to the light. So it sort of minimized it. And it's not a very good photo, but there it is in the wild in New Orleans. But the ones, for example, we were able to do in Park City, we were able to minimize the amount of equipment that's on there.
Can I see that?
This is their historic pole. We were able to just put a very small addition to the pole. You guys can.
Well, if they're only on the street lights, that's not really tall, and so you'd be, so, you know, people be passing by and, you know, so is that, so I don't know that we could do that, right? I mean,
Well-
would there, or would it be, if they're down low like those, the lights he's talking about that's downtown, they're not real tall, are they?
No.
Gary? Yeah.
Some of those are pretty low, so we'd have to do something, you know, we'd have to do something similar that can meet the coverage requirements, but without, you know, looking drastically different. We have some,
I mean, Eric was saying that maybe down on Roberts Way, and just do some taller, the 18-foot poles down
Yeah.
there.
and there we'd have to go out a little bit. And we started kind of giving some thought into the design. One thing that we think would be really useful, you have that wooden depot pole that's already there next to the train. And we could replace that with a steel black pole that would actually, you know, might
Okay.
look better than the wooden one.
Okay, wait, I think everybody's a little distracted here. Let's all get focused. Because I can't hear him for everybody talking, so.
Let me ask you, and I don't want you to feel attacked or anything else.
Thank you.
I am very wary of 5G too. It makes me a little nervous. Like my brother lived next to a tower, and they sold their house. Like he got sick, and now he's fine now that he's gone. Like not living there anymore because he was like trying to rule everything out. So if you're saying that it is going to come eventually, like how long do we have for that to, and it just without having health and safety assessments and stuff like that?
You say you had studies already?
Mhm.
Could you email each of us a copy of it?
Yeah, actually,
I already sent those out, but we can resend them.
yeah, we have a lot of those. So sorry, to go back, sorry.
So, you know, that, it, just from even seeing a person that I love, and you know, you already know I love my community, and I don't wanna do anything that could possibly hurt them or give cancer or harm or anything like that, and you're saying that the government will eventually roll this out, like how long do we have, or how?
It depends who you ask. When I go down to the restaurants and I talk to everyone here in Blue Ridge, it can't happen fast enough because, you know, you want to use your phone, you want to be able to collect parking, you want to be able to scan the barcode when you park, pay instantly and be done. You can't do that. So from that perspective, the carriers are slow and they're dragging, and you know, a lot of people tell me they wish it was, happening already.
See,
When I talk to,
sorry. I have a business down there and I've been down there for like 9 years and I'm in the hole within a 10 building and I'm right next to the train and I've not ever had, I've
Christie,
maybe,
I think
yeah.
it's more, we have this problem, especially on event weekends or weekends, really weekends in general now when there's so many people in town. And any festival you have downtown, they'll start trying to use their
yeah.
square and can't use it at the
have them in
festivals.
both my
But
stores
it's-
and I've
it's
never
still-
had an
it's
issue.
still cellular signal, right?
Yeah.
Do you
It
have
is.
Wi-Fi too though?
Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, or
Yeah.
no, I'm on whatever our internet company.
Yeah, so you're on
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, so these are 5G, which would be, so they're not hooked up to a Wi-Fi downtown, they'll be hooked up to like their cell phones.
Yeah.
So it's the cell phone's ability to do it, and that happens like used to with parking and stuff too. That's why we put a cash, in, where people could pay cash as well down there, so.
But
Well, I
to-
understand the cell phone here is not good, but you're telling me it's a cellular signal. Tell me what the difference is in 4G and your 5G. Is this just a souped up signal? I mean,
No,
why is
it-
this so much better?
it's a different frequency, which allows you to carry more data,
So
right?
it's a microwave frequency,
Not exactly, but it's a higher level frequency,
not
right? So it-
exactly.
Well, because it's different, you know how
I do.
frequency is blocked in different blocks. Microwave is in a different block than the cellular signal that they use for 5G. The 4G is in a different block. The difference is the 5G doesn't carry as far. It doesn't go through walls as easily. It's not as strong
So
a
then
signal.
Christie's not gonna be advantageous. It's not gonna help her. If she's in a metal building, it's gonna carry through the metal building,
To some degree.
but really no more than the 4G.
I don't know if you can say it the same way because the 4G is not located in the same places either. So in general, 5G will improve the coverage and data capacity.
Well, I travel to Atlanta and
Inside.
all over, and I've got a 5G phone, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't like 5G. I don't like the service I get with 5G. My phone freaks out every time it hits 5G. So I don't want the same problem. Yeah, I got a spasmodic phone, what do you want me to tell you? But it messes, I don't see the difference. I think we would be better off to have Wi-Fi and fiber optic Wi-Fi, so that we could go in, when I hook my phone to my Wi-Fi at home, I don't have any issues.
And have like free Wi-Fi
But that
for
doesn't bother
downtown.
you the same way that
Say that
the
again?
but you're using Wi-Fi at home also. You have a signal that transmits.
They can pay
Absolutely,
$1 if they
from a
hook
router.
onto it.
I mean, I don't understand why the 5G is so incredible. I'm just asking, why is the 5G so incredible?
You can
Is it like
can
a
send more-
turbo 5G or?
just you can carry more data. So if you want to download movies on your phone, you can do it more quickly because there's just more data coming through faster. Whereas
So it's only about data transfer.
it's largely about data. I mean, back like when I said like when we built
But
out.
you said it won't reach, I'm not trying to confuse you, I'm just trying to get this in my head. So it won't really come in this building any farther than 4G will, but when it does hit the building, then I'm gonna be able to download files faster, is that what you're saying? That's basically what 5G is, right?
You could say that, yes, you could say that, yeah. And that's a lot of the network use is shifting to data. You know, people are using data a lot more than, nobody really uses voice calling anymore. So in my example of 10 years ago when towers could be 10 miles apart, that was for a voice signal. The more data, everything gets closer together, signal gets shorter, it doesn't go as far, but it can carry more data. But to go back to answer your question about the timeline, so I talked to Dish last week, and Dish is the newest network, and they're the let's call it the slowest to roll out. Verizon and AT&T are probably the fastest, along with T-Mobile, to roll out. Dish is not looking at Blue Ridge until early as 2024, and that's probably a stretch. AT&T, you know, their build plan is definitely 2024. They're preparing for how to build out. It's, you know, I'm not here to really defend or push 5G. I'm here, when it comes, you're gonna have to have a way to deal with it. I'm proposing a way to deal with it.
You're proposing the pill. We're gonna be forced to take the pill, you're just putting the chocolate on
I'm
it.
trying to put a little chocolate on it.
So you're
Because,
trying to, we're gonna have it shoved down our throats, so the chocolate's gonna what? Make it slicker as it goes down?
just like you have
More
cell
tasty.
coverage, just like you have cell coverage from towers that are out there now, you know, the traditional way that was built out was you would go and find a farmer, you would find a landowner, someone that you could pay to put that tower in their yard. And tower up, FCC says carriers can put that signal out there if they're allowed to do that. Now the FCC says in the right of way on every major road and every street, carriers can use that right of way and they can put these towers in the road. And that's how they're deploying 5G because, like I said, it needs to be closer. You need more of them because it doesn't carry as far and it's not as strong a signal. So when they're ready to go, they can come and put a tower in the right of way wherever they want. And there's just two levers that you can really control: exactly where they put it and exactly what it looks like to some degree. And
To some degree.
to some degree.
Well, I appreciate those two levers.
Can we do ordinances against stuff like that?
No, the
or-
federal government says you gotta do
No,
it,
you
you gotta
can't.
do it.
And that's my,
I
and
would
that,
ask.
but that's my point. It's like, okay, it's not here yet. Let's think about what's the best way to do it for Blue Ridge so that it doesn't alter it too much. Let's think
So
about the
your
best way of how
timeline
it
is
looks.
what for this 5G?
We'd like to figure out what's the best way to do it. We can start having that conversation now, you know, and we can, and maybe this time next year, we have, you know, coverage in places that you like and things that look like. But, you know, it's gone.
Again, not trying to
It's
kill the
happening.
messenger, but this don't sit well with me, and I don't believe that it sits well with this council.
Well, I can say that, when the DDA brought this up, they said they, you know, for festivals primarily, there was nobody that spoke in favor of it, but there was a lot of people spoke against it. You know, just had reservations about it, and, so, I mean, if we don't have a choice, we don't have a choice, but I just still, regardless, I know there's a lot of people that's not in favor of it.
And the problem is, that's not the choice that the council faces, you know.
Man,
If I go away-
you must be the guy that really gets it. I mean, you must not be a very liked fella if you have to come in and tell people like us that,
Well,
in this beautiful town, that we're gonna have to accept this whether we know.
well, look at what
Well-
Park
Or
City
not.
did. Park City said the same thing, and so they said, hold on, all right, let's figure out how, if we're going to do it, let's figure out what it looks like and where you put it. And then we came up with a really good way to not have it obtrusive, to not have it disrupt the downtown, and to do it in a way that eventually everyone was happy with.
Okay.
The alternative is the carriers come, they do it individually, you deal with each one as they come, they put up what they wanna put up.
Let me ask you a question on that too. Let's say that we do enter into a contract with you, with your company, or no
I'm
contract.
not asking for a contract.
So, let's say we allow you to you work with us, we put things downtown, we put this downtown. What's to say that AT&T or Verizon or somebody's not gonna come in and duplicate, and then we're double?
You can say that.
Yeah.
Because what you can say with your two levers is how close they can be to each other,
Mm-hmm.
distance requirements. Generally, we work with a lot of councils on how to help design their guidelines. Because that's one of the key things you can say. You can say, no, we're not gonna put two right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanna put two right next to each other, then you guys need to get together. Or you need to be X number of feet apart, and that number of feet is usually
So-
like 500.
So we probably should be working on an ordinance that dictates that. So is Chuck on the phone with us?
As part of that
Yeah.
process.
It's part of the process, yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
And we pro bono for free happily offer what we know about other cities,
Okay.
about other ordinances.
What do you do exactly? You just
So we
lay this
design-
out, or do you actually do the construction?
So as a business, like, everything I've talked about is what we do with cities
For the
for
Toro
for
Blanco.
free. Toro Blanco. We just advise, we like cities to make the best choices. What we do is we design poles that look unique for each place. We build them, we manufacture them, we come in, we stand them up. We have contracts with the carriers, they come in and use it. That's how we survive as a business, right? For profit, right? We're not a charity, that's how we make our money, right? What I would want from Blue Ridge is I would just be asking permission, can I go and do this? And use the normal permitting process to do it.
Okay.
But I kind of overkill the upfront talks because I want to, before we ever apply for anything, we try to spend as much time as possible talking about it and coming up with something that works instead of, if we apply or if AT&T applies or if Verizon applies, the shot clock starts and you have to respond within that amount of time. And you already know you can't say no. You can only kind of lever it a little bit.
Right.
So we don't want to come in and say, this is what we want to do, start the shot clock.
You just
know?
want to help us make it pretty and doable and safe.
So you're in modern day Michael Guerin, do you know
Yeah.
Michael?
Michael Garrett.
No,
Michael was 17 when he
the
went
safest
around
it can be.
and got the air rights over the churches in Atlanta because he said cell phones are gonna be a big deal. I think he sold that business for 350 million, and did South America and China. So you're doing this on a micro scale.
Much smaller scale, yeah.
Huh?
Much smaller scale, yes,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But we see it's a niche business. We work in these historic areas, these protected areas. We try to keep them that way.
Okay.
And it's not a billion-dollar business, but
Well,
we can help some
I want to
towns.
thank you for coming tonight. I don't think anyone else has any more questions, but
I just wanna apologize if I seem offensive to you, but
Yeah.
this
I- I
is serious to
understand.
me.
yeah. And I think it's something we're going to have to really think about as a council. And you have Eric's,
Yes.
he's the liaison between all of us, and we'll
Yeah.
discuss more, and we're gonna talk more with our attorney too and see how, how to proceed, so.
The most I would ever ask is for your blessing on a permit if we
Okay.
decide to do something,
Okay.
but I'm not trying to push anything.
Well, evidently, we don't have to give you one. Evidently, they're gonna take it, the federal government's gonna have it whether we do it or not.
So,
That part's not my fight, but I'm helping.
Go
where I
to-
can.
do-
Also, it's not question and answer, but I think there's someone that, do you want us to have some information? Have you got some information for us? Well, we can't go backwards and forth, but if you want to provide us with that, you can bring it up to us, yeah.
We have an IT expert on the city council. Bill, do you have anything that you want to ask him or any comments you
Answered
want?
all my questions. My biggest question is, I've had people ask me, would 4G work on a 5G network? And if so, or if it won't, then 5G's not gonna do the 4G any good. There's no way you're gonna get cancer or anything like that, correct?
So right now, for example, in New Orleans, for AT&T, we have 4G and 5G on that one pole that I showed, so they have both of them.
Got it.
Eventually,
Thank
4G will sunset,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
6G,
Yeah.
it'll keep evolving, but eventually one will go away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, with that, I think that's the end of our discussion. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
I got one other question though. I just thought about it. How, if you don't, how is it that, how are you involved? What business or how do you make money or, what is?
By selling the poles and designing.
Okay, okay. So you own the poles and they have to lease them
I don't
from
know,
you.
Meg. Listen, what's the
And and all you want from us is to let you put the poles up. And then you're gonna lease it. And you want the pole before they come and do it.